Hi, it's Ileana at Awakening Cosmic Reality Show. And today I have Daniel Sala with me. He's a researcher, and we've recently been talking together about Hollow Earth, the secret space programs, ETs, Rado Cinemar's books. And we have Apollymi Mandylion with us today. She is a secret space program experiencer. She has experiences in Hollow Earth and a lot of information about ETs. So Daniel is going to be leading today's interview. He has many different wonderful questions that he's compiled for Alamini and me. So Daniel, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And yeah, from what I understood, you wanted me to be a sort of go-between between you two because you two have a lot of similarities. And I presented you with Apollymi, and she instantly struck me as having a lot of parallels with you. For example, the ICC connection, the accent on the technology, on psi abilities, inner earth, a passion for inner earth, and you both get into the nuts and bolts of things and don't just aren't just vague about it. So my first question would be regarding your first commonality, which is the way you both retrieved your first memories, from what I understood, had to do with the shamanism and past life regression. Am I right? Let's start with Apollymi.
Yes, I ended up getting quite a bit of my memories recovered from past life regression. It was supposed to be a past life regression, but it ended up actually triggering suppressed memories from my childhood and the projects and ET abductions. Sorry, and ET abductions. So yeah, it was not what I expected.
Mm-hmm. And for me, it was actually
Cool.
studying
Did
shamanism.
it play a role?
Yeah, but no, go ahead, Daniel.
My connection had a little bit of a lag there, but yeah. So in your case, it also played a large role. Am I right? Shamanism.
How so? For you, Apollymi?
Oh, the person who ended up doing my past life regression was he's basically a high priest. He was studying shamanism and doing regressions, and it was like his like fourth or fifth one, if I remember correctly. So, and I didn't know what to expect, but yeah. And then I started kind of delving into the shamanistic stuff as well, just a little bit before I had to switch my studies over. But
and what were the first signs that it was real? I think you had some physical experiences that confirmed for you that you were indeed part of the SSP.
It took me a long time to know that it was in the SSP, and I mean years. So, but I started getting these memories and flashbacks of being on other planets and not having the same feeling as lucid dreaming or astral traveling. It was like a lot more realistic for me. So, and then like the fighting of ETs and just being on spaceships in general. And I was actually starting to get abducted a couple weeks later for at least showing signs and symptoms. But when I asked the shaman, because I was actually staying at his place, I was actually starting to go missing, and he didn't say anything because he didn't know how to react. So I started waking up with abduction marks, punctures, bruises. I was dehydrated all the time. So there was a lot of physical evidence going on. I just didn't know how to put it together or make anything of it.
And am I right that your first memory was pretty much around the time that you were born, meaning it was in the ICU and you saw certain ETs replacing you? And could you go into that event?
I only got like glimpse images, and all I remember is staring up at the ceiling, and I know that I was a very like newborn, and I remember seeing 3 Dracos around my ICU unit, the little container thing that they put babies in, and they were green. One of them was kind of a brownish color, but yeah, that's kind of like, it was just a flash, you know, I mean, and then that's about all that I remember. I remember them talking, and that was about it, and then staring at me.
And would you mind going over the percentages of your DNA as it pertains to ETs? This goes for both of you, but let's start with Apollymi.
My DNA is really complicated because I have quite a bit of it. I have what most people would call celestial DNA. It is actually DNA from Hanova. I have 2 strands from there. One of them is draconic, not draconian. There's a difference. And the other one is an elvish type race, although they both kind of are elves, but one of them actually transfers into a dragon later on in life. And then I have Palladian, and they used my host mother for the bonding agent, which is human, and she has lineage of draconian as well, actual like draconian. And then I have no idea who the other bonding agent for the father is, but so I have a ET mother, an ET father, and then a human mother, and some random human dude. So it's complicated. Did he freeze?
And, okay. And what about you, Ileana?
For me, I am Andromedan, Pleiadian, and the L race, which is a 12th dimensional race of beings that are descendants of the ancient builder races who left behind all this interesting technology with the arc ships, the crystalline technology, the holographic stuff. And I also have a lot of lineages with Atlantis and past lives in Atlantis. So that's my genetic sort of background. And I had started my shamanic journeys in about 2013 because I had really started to feel sick physically on the physical level. And I remembered all these reptilian abductions when I was a little kid from 2 to 10, just having these black portals open up in my bedroom where my crib was, or my child's bed, whatever you want to call it, right? And just them coming in, and they were black drazo. They're called black drazo because they have this black skin and kind of scaly, 14 feet to 16 feet. And these 2 reptilians taking me out of my bedroom, leading me through the dark tunnel. And this was in Europe because I was born in Ukraine, and going underground into underground systems under Rostov, which is a city not too far from Ukraine. And I would describe this as DUMS bases because there was humans working there and the reptilians, but the humans were not to interact with the reptilians. So it was kind of military, and the reptilians would literally do experiments on my blood, poison my blood with nanotechnology, ruin my immune system. And this is like the first recall I had through the shamanic past life regression. And I had just memories of this on its own, but the shamanism past life regression, it sort of made me understand what that was and why I was sick and what I needed to heal. And then my shaman teacher, who was Métis shaman, Native American shaman, he taught me how to do past life regression. And he also taught me to do hybrid hypnosis as well, to go deep into the memories, to access the things that are deep in the subconsciousness. And this is when the secret space program stuff started coming up in terms of, I had memories being on Mars. I had memories of these Mars bases protected by electromagnetic domes. Some of them are on the surface, some of them are underground. And there's these research facilities called the cybernetics labs. And the name is planetary corporations. That's what the name is. And they're military-like corporation running these bases. I was on 11 of them. And I was specifically working with splicing human ET genetics to create hybrid beings. And I was also working on biological drug serums and the holographic medical pods and smart suits, developing that technology out even more for them in these cybernetic labs. So, and I remember just people hanging on meat suits, just like hooked up and blood dripping and body parts in these cybernetic labs, because they use body parts to create cyborgs, human biological cyborgs, and augment them with Neurolink implants, which are, mine were created by Nordic, so it's partly etherical, partly nanotechnology, and just to enhance my mind, because physically I'm not a strong person. I wasn't supposed to go out on missions and do the whole super soldier. I was a researcher. I knew a lot about genetics, so I was like the support staff in these cybernetic labs. I was cybernetics technician working with these implants and actually designing the smart suits for the super soldiers and the holographic medical pods, regen tanks, monitoring how the holographic aspects interact with the technology itself, with the physical technology. So this is what came up in the past life regression, the shamanism, as well, that I was having contact ET experiences with the L race, the Andromedans, Pleiadians, Arcturians, being taught healing, energetic healing. And this really inspired me to go into that work 10 years later, because I was a library technician. So I was just purely doing research and working with people. But I really felt drawn to the energy healing, to the shamanism, to the hypnosis and soul retrieval. So just bringing back the pieces of the soul that were somewhere else. So for me, it was just needing to heal the stuff with the reptilians and just, acknowledging what happened on Mars. So that's my story, kind of how shamanism helped me to understand what those experiences were.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, and before I want to delve deeper into ICC, but before that, I want to draw a little bit of a parallel, because I'm not gonna, bet on it, but there is a working theory that she also had encounters with Drazo because of her certain description of them having black skin. But before that, let's do our first foray to set that up into Inner Earth. And Apollymi, could you quickly cover how Aryans captured you? I think that was your first encounter at 4 years old.
I don't really know if they're Aryan. They are blonde Nordic type, but they usually just promote themselves as Inner Earth beings. These guys did not work for the Nazi Aryans at all, or the ICC. They are literally strictly for Inner Earth, and I had very positive interactions with them. I never had, nothing was ever really scary except for my PTSD moment where I ended up injuring one of the little blue guys. So
they're drones.
We like to call them genetic servants because I don't know if these guys are genetically engineered. I've never seen them outside of Inner Earth. They're like 3 foot tall, like just this cobalt blue, and then they've got like darker blue spots on them, like on their heads and down their spine, and just kind of more on their back area with like a little bit on the shoulders and legs. And they've got like human irises with actual blue eyes, and their eyes are bigger, a little more softer and rounder than the gray type ETs that you see. But they do have the gray body type as well. But everything's been always nice with them. Even when I think I got abducted by a different faction as well, they did all this testing for abilities and sensatory. So, but they were also very polite and just kind of very neutral, where the Nazi Aryans were the complete opposite.
Right,
so,
but before we get into that, let's also briefly mention the second set of ETs that laid claim to you because of your DNA connection, the brown creatures. And would you go over that and how the black-skinned, I don't know if he was a Drazo, but could you describe him and what happened there?
So the brown-skinned ETs were very kind of wrinkly. They were kind of, they were definitely taller. Their heads were wider. They kind of reminded me of like a taller, thicker version of the actual like ET movie, like, you know, with the little brown dude. But these guys were definitely a lot squishier and definitely not good. They literally fed off of fear. They were kind of like more of like workers for the Chakrel, which is the coal black skinned ETs that I was talking about. Those guys are more akin to what most people would associate as dark elves. And everyone's like, oh, you play too many video games. No, dark elves actually do exist. There are several different types out there. These ones come from Hinova. They are very tall. They're between 13 and up, depending on how big they want to be, because they can get pretty big. And they have red eyes, completely white hair. Well, their eye color can vary between red, gold, yellow, and orange. And they used to be part of the Dark Council, you know, in that sort of area, along with some of the Nazi Aryans as well. But since 2016, when Source sent people over here to figure out what the heck was going on, they ended up switching sides. So they didn't want to deal with that. But at the time, I was getting abducted by those guys because I share at least 50% of DNA with them. So they were the main stockholders of the experiment that is me, technically.
Right, but they weren't, yeah, that kind of rules out that they were Drazo because they are reptilian, and yours were dark elves.
Yeah, well, they have some reptilian in them, but they don't show it very much at all. But they are completely different. Yeah, this sounds like they're a different species or subspecies. These guys throw their genetics in quite a few things. So.
But this really piqued my curiosity when I heard about the Drazo because they're lesser talked about. And Ileana, could you briefly specify how they were whether they were part of the 22 ETs that seeded us, and who, if they really wanted to terraform this planet about a couple of decades ago?
I don't think they were one of the reptilian races that seeded us. These guys are into genetic experiments and taking human samples. I didn't get from them that they're the seeders of this race. They didn't contribute any genetics. They're just the experimenters. They like to see how humans work who have psychic abilities. And they tried to kill me. They infested me with a nanovirus that almost killed me. I was paralyzed for almost 3 weeks in the ICU, and they couldn't figure out the virus, what I had. So it was an unknown anomaly virus. They did the whole spinal tap, they did everything, and it was just some virus. They couldn't figure it out. But what I got from the past life regression and QHHD, quantum healing hypnosis, I also had a session, is that through nanotechnology, they can insert anything in your blood and almost try to poison your blood. It's like being on fire. It's literally like burning up. And the black Drazo, they have very taut skin. So it's very, it's black, and their eyes are black, pitch black. And they wear black armor as well. And they have ridges, like going up the head, ridges. So, and a little bit of ridges on the side. And again, they range from 14 to 16 feet tall. There's also reptilians there called the Sharab invictus, kind of greenish yellow. And they had almost no ridges and no scales, but spots on the skin. And obviously they looked reptilian as well. Two different species, but still working together on these human experiments, primarily on children and adolescents, because I saw other children in those underground caverns, if you will. Some of them were in cages, some of them were chained to the walls, they were malnourished, they didn't have much clothing on, they weren't being fed properly, some of them were screaming. But I was just let in, the experiments were done on me, and I was taken back home through these black portal systems. I never sat in a cage, I was never chained. I'd say maybe they took me for 30 minutes to an hour, did the experiments, toxified my blood, and then brought me back home and put a screen memory to make it seem like there was black crows all around me, like it was black crows to mask who they were. So that's the screen memory, I would say, because I remember dreaming about black crows. But then when that memory lifted, it came back as these black drowser reptilians and this dark portal system.
I had a question.
Yeah.
So did they put you in the chair to do the memories, or did they do the psychokinetic, basically memory overlay, where they use their mental abilities to basically give you an artificial memory?
I think it was their psychic mental ability to give me that overlay of seeing the black crows. And I was always kind of apprehensive when I saw black crows. For me, it's like, oh, wow. I'm not afraid of crows, but I was always apprehensive as a little kid of big black birds for a while. Then when I understood that these were screen memories to cover up that these were reptilians, for me, it was like, oh, okay, now I understand this. This is just like to hide something, to cover something up. Yeah, I was never in any trip chair or psionic chairs, their ability that could just mask them, who they are.
Yeah, and I didn't start getting into the chairs until about 3 years ago. Like everything else, they never even tried to overlay anything. They just usually either wiped it or I have very strong resistance to the telepathic messages and whatnot. So,
and Apollymi, do those dark elves still hold your genetic contract right now?
So it's kind of tricky because I keep getting told that someone had bought out my DNA contracts and then was going to give me my freedom, but I jumped so many timelines and parallel universes, it's kind of tricky. So at this point, I'm just existing. But as far as I know, I am still technically part of their what you would call kingdom, or under their terminology of ownership. But I am still in the projects as well, and they still fund quite a bit of the ICC as well for the projects that I was in, because I was literally created by the Chakrel and a few other people, like one of the Dark Draconian Queens, the Chakrel, and a few of the other species to actually fight all the light workers down here on their level. So I have light working ability, and they're like, well, we can't touch these guys because they, we can't get to that vibration, or there's rules that they have to abide by. And so they ended up creating my batch, and I was one of two of the only semi-functional ones to be coherent enough to actually do anything. But I didn't turn out exactly the way they wanted, because I'm extremely strong-willed and I don't like working for jerks who treat me like crap. So yeah, I went through all that training, and apparently I'm too inexpensive to kill. So they reprogrammed my agenda for being here in society. And I'm still like doing the SSP stuff as well, but they actually come and get me because they don't want me living on base.
Thanks. And you mentioned ICC, and I wonder if Ileana could quickly cover the hierarchy of ICC and who is it that calls the shots?
So I don't call it ICC because in my memories it's called planetary corporations. It's not called interplanetary corporate conglomerate, just to clarify. But we're probably talking about the same organization. Some people might have different names for it. Mine was Planetary Corp. And it's basically a military organization that's a corporation. It's run like a corporation. And they basically have Earth affiliates of pharmaceutical companies, aerospace dynamics, and they outsource projects. If they want something with technology, they can outsource it to any of these groups, and they basically don't really know what they're working on, that they're just making parts of something, and then it goes off planet from Earth to Mars and back to Mars. And so the hierarchy is, you have the military corporation, right? That's at the top of the hierarchy. Then you have the workers, the SSP assets that they collect and bring in on the Mars bases to work for them. And they're assigned different jobs based on their skill sets, which you're good at. For me, it was psionics and my research abilities and just holographic technology, because I have memories of past life stuff connected to that. So my brain works very fast at computing information, and the Neurolink implants augmented that. So based on your ability and what you can do, they put you in certain job skills. And then you have the super soldiers underneath who do the missions, who are augmented with the nanotechnology. So that's sort of the hierarchy of it. And there's a lot of different nations participating. They're not Germans. So I would say they're more like the US factions that branched off and went off world and developed this planetary corporation. But they're not, I never got the sense that they were pure Germans. It's a bunch of nations.
But they do collaborate with the German faction, right?
Well, not really. No, I don't. They don't collaborate with Nachtwaffen.
Oh, it's
German.
just that I was under the impression that they built some of their ships, and they had some sharing of tech here and there and some joint projects, but I might have been wrong.
Sometimes they might collaborate, but they don't like to share their technology, outsource it or share it with, because the Germans have their own secret space program groups. These guys hold everything close to themselves, their technology, so they don't share easily. They might collaborate if something requires them to do a project, but usually they prefer to be left to themselves and to do their inner project work, because they have their infrastructure on Mars. They don't need anybody else, really. So, and again, many nations, they take people from different countries, Canada, Germany, France, United States, anywhere. If you have the abilities and you're useful to them, they'll pick you up and they'll entice you with technology. They'll tell you you're going to have a great life off world. You're going to be serving a higher mission purpose to improve security, to improve safety for protecting the solar system. So it's like, you're useful, you're important, you matter. That was the message that I got to sort of entice me with the holographic technology, and that I would have access to my past life memories, and that I would see space, and that I'd have all these great experiences. So that's sort of the
pitch.
Yeah, the pitch that I was given. I said, okay, this sounds decent, I guess. I just didn't know that I would be doing a 60 and back through a quantum leap time dilation program, and that I would be going between timelines, between my Earth life and my Mars life for almost 60 years. And they keep me young with the drug serums, looking 30, and experiment with me, temporarily injecting different DNA into me, making me look like human ETs. I didn't know that that would be part of the package, and I'd get Neurolink implants that would later almost cause me to die because they malfunctioned on Earth. So, you never really know what you're signing up for until you're doing the work in space.
All right. And this 60M back, do you believe it's in the same timeline as this, meaning somewhere on Mars right now, parallel to us, there is another you?
Well, there's not another me right now because I'm not working for them right now. I'm no longer in the secret space program. Honestly, I would say the last time I did something for them was in 2017. So there's not another me right now on Mars. I'm here. That ended in 2017. I was officially discharged March 2014, but I actually wanted something from them in 2017. I wanted to go on that Ayua Muya cigar-shaped craft. Like I physically wanted to go there and see what was there. And I went on I asked them, they took me on a mission. I got to saw the stasis beings who boarded that ship for their own purposes. And I got to see the ancient stuff and what that ship was about. But then I was asked, well, now you do something for us. We took you on that mission. Now you need to do some work for us. So there were a few missions in between. And then I said, no more. I don't want to be beamed out by the jump gate technology. Don't do any more time dilation, because it was causing me to be very tired and disoriented. It's like jumping timelines. I fully believe these bases are physically there because I have coordinates for them, longitude and latitude, for 11 bases and 2 weapons facilities and 2 colonies on Mars. So I physically believe it's all there, but sometimes it feels like it's a future timeline. So there's some concept of future time travel involved as well sometimes, with that feeling like I've been there until 2060, literally 2060. So I think there's some timeline jumping sometimes involved in these projects. That's my awareness understanding.
Yeah, and because otherwise you would have been let go technically if you didn't see it through, and if you were let go in 2016, 17, then it wouldn't really be a 60M back anymore. It would be like much less.
Yeah.
And regarding ICC, how spread out are they right now in the galaxy and maybe beyond?
Well, they have facilities on Pluto. They have facilities on Uranus. They have research labs. There's also lunar space operations, which has mining facilities on asteroids. I know that Mars Planetary Corp has 2 colonies, 2 large colonies on Mars, 11 bases, and 2 weapons facilities, and also research underground facilities. So I would say their main territories are on Mars, but they certainly have the capability to branch out and settle other planets and colonies if they want the capability. They have warp drive. Even they're trying to go and integrate the crystalline technologies onto their ships to go beyond warp drive engines, because they want to increase their ability to do faster than the speed of light travel. Because right now it's slow for them. They're using plasma technology engines, but they want to go, they can do beyond the speed of light, but it's very slow going. So they want the crystalline tech inserted into their ships to go faster. But the thing they don't understand is the crystal tech is sentient in and of itself. It's crystalline based. So integrating it into metal components is not easy going, because a lot of those ships are biological, where the crystalline tech is. So it's like, okay, it's like trying to breed a dog with a cow or a horse with a cow, where the genetics are just too different to put those together. So putting crystalline technology and metallic bits, the integration process is completely weird, and it doesn't work a lot of the time, because those ships from my past life regression stuff, they're arc ships, they're bio-living ships. They're not made of metal and bits. So the crystalline stuff naturally integrates. It doesn't have metallic components per se. So this is what they have to understand and rebuild their ships.
Oh, I see. And Apollymi, I understand you're taken multiple times a week. And could you comment about what the usual mission length is and whether you feel like you're being time traveled back, or does it happen in real time?
So usually it really depends on what my mission is. We get different ones every night. Seldomly do we do the same mission several times. If we do, I usually end up staying longer. I'm usually taken for about 3.5 hours to 5 hours, depending on how long the mission is. So I either wake up at 3:30 in the morning or I wake up at 5:30 in the morning. So as for missions, I am part of the SSP because I work for one of the more secretive organizations of SSP. We do have US military there, but my group is mainly operated and owned by ET organizations for their militaries. They dump a lot of money and a lot of resources into Section 13. So, like I said, my missions they're kind of more like this weird from me going on missions. They don't give us specific details on who told us the mission or is funding the mission. We just get our gear, get briefed, and go. And that's it. We're not allowed to ask questions or anything like that. We just have our objective and we do what we do. Half of the time, we either jump through stargates, so we don't know the exact coordinates we're going to because we're just the soldiers, basically. We do not have flight team. We don't have pilots. Like, even though we can pilot, but we don't pilot us to the mission area. So everything's like pretty top secret. Unless I have to travel us there, and then I have to know exactly kind of where we're going. But my missions can range from just, handling cargo and transporting it to different dimensions through the crystal train, or going and doing assassinations, or going and infiltrating, or espionage. It really, really just depends on what they want us to do. Go ahead.
You have no defense against getting abducted.
I didn't say that I didn't have any defenses. It's just I usually don't win out. I have been in this program since I was about 5.5 to 6 years old. I went through the Auschwitz Program, which is the Children of God program. I guess they only ran a couple batches, but that was from the Nazi Aryans. That was basically my boot camp, and then I got transferred to Section 13 again. So they are constantly learning about us. They are constantly figuring out new technologies and new ways to make us subservient to them. And with the latest technology upgrades that they have had, they're doing a pretty good job. I could not get out of my new collar for about a week because of my phasing ability. So it took me quite a while to actually get and match the frequencies to phase through my collar. I do have to say they're more stylish, but that's about it.
And these types of abductions, do they vary? Are they always physical, or are they sometimes astral? Do they take the whole of you, or do they only take shards of you?
They do both. I get abducted physically. I've had caretakers 24/7 say that I go missing. I've had boyfriends say that I go missing. I've had roommates say I go missing. I've had put cameras up and my cameras go black, and then a few hours later they kick back on and I'm still asleep. I've had my cameras messed with. Like, I was literally talking to my roommate, went to the bathroom, came back, went back to bed, and the camera activated, but it still showed I was sleeping and did not record the entire conversation that me and my roommate had. So I do get taken physically. And then usually, like, I'll smell different because I shower before bed. I've learned to check myself for abduction marks or any bruising before bed. And sometimes I'll wake up with abduction marks. Sometimes I'll wake up sore. I'll wake up dehydrated, tired. My brain will be in a fog sometimes. It really just depends. And then if they do the neurolinking for, say my physical body isn't in shape enough to go on missions or I'm having issues, they will neurolink me to a clone, and then I can go and do my missions that way. Or they'll link me to another body that my soul isn't exactly compatible with, but the Neurolink stabilizes that. So it's kind of like I'm experiencing everything as if I was there, like 100% there. I have all the memories, all the smells, all the feelings, but usually those ones are what we call like suicide bodies, so they don't care if they get destroyed, but it really just depends. And they can put me in any species.
I see. And Ileana, does Time Core regulate the time travel limitations for ICC? Do they oversee the regulation there? And are they limited by them, or who exactly is Time Core?
So the Time Corporations is the humanoids that survived Atlantis and left the planet. That's part of the Time Corp. There's other factions of ETs who don't want time technology misused, so they participate in Time Corp. Some of the people who have time traveled are part of it as well. So it's a lot of different humanoid species of ETs and us humans that are part of Time Corp itself, but it's mainly those factions who left Earth a long time ago when the cataclysms happened, and they didn't want this solar system, this galaxy, or other galaxies ripped apart by what happened in the reptilian Draco Wars, the Lyran Wars, because they almost ripped this whole galaxy apart, and it left these planets in a mess. It left Mars in a mess. It left Earth in some sort of a mess. Those other planets, uninhabitable, like Venus, wasn't like this. The ravages, this is what was caused by these wars of overheating of these planets, because these heavy duty, almost nuclear type energy directed weapons were used to scorch the planets, and it overheated everything during those wars. So that's why Time Corp was formed in the first place, to prevent that from happening ever again. So they do limit planetary corporations, time travel. Basically, they could do the time dilation, like the 60 and back. They can use jump gateway stations or portable stations on the basis to time dilate you. They can take you physically from your body, like the whole body, or they could take a portion of your soul, put it into another body, a clone, an avatar, a cyborg, or a body that's genetically, like, purely designed for you. That's not clone generated, but it's fully grown. So they could put your soul, and that's time travel. That's considered time travel. So that's how Planetary Corp could use time travel. They're jump gateway stations, literally transport stations that can time dilate you to different timelines, realities, or even take you back in time or forwards in time. But it's all regulated to mission specific things. I can just go and jump on that time dilation station, right, transport pad, and just dial in and go wherever I want. It's regulated. Somebody would know if I wanted to do that, as an example, on the Mars base. So it's restricted. It's quite illegal to just nilly-willy time travel. And they have inertia dampeners on any of the spaceships, Planetary Corp spaceships that have the time dilator functionalities, because they have them installed on the ships. But they have inertial dampeners that prevent you to just dialing in coordinates and going wherever. So I think it is restricted on mission parameters, where you're told, this is the mission, this is where you're going, you're time traveling. They dial it in, you go, you complete the mission, and you come back. So it is restricted, I think, to prevent you from illegally changing things for the bad. Then you create bad timelines that they have to undo later on. So I would say yes, it is restricted and it's only designed for specific missions. And if it's not part of the core mission, if it's for something inappropriate, you don't get to time travel because you don't get to destabilize timelines, destroy civilizations, planets. So that's why the restrictions are there. So you don't alter time and ruin everything and make everything bad, because that's timeline incursion. That's how timeline wars start. So that's why they have those preventatives.
Cool. And have you been part of any time missions yourself to change, to alter the future?
I was very leery of time traveling through the jump-way gate stations that they have on the Mars bases, because I would be very tired when they took me and picked me up and did that timeline adjustment between Earth and Mars to do the 60 and back, to be away so long from Earth, because it could be like 5 hours of missing time when I was on Mars. But I was like, people would say, you're not there. You look vacant. Your body is there, kind of functioning. Part of your soul is there, but the rest of you is somewhere else physically. You sort of look vacant. You look tired. You look different. You act different. That's how I knew I was time dilated. Like my literal soul felt split physically. I was taken time dilated to Mars. So I didn't like that. That's the side effects, I would say, of this time tech that they have. I never asked to time travel, so I don't think that I was time traveling anywhere. I have the natural ability to time travel with my mind to different timelines to fix things, like prevent nuclear war. And I've done that. To prevent earthquakes, and I've done that. I've changed timelines. So I've done timeline hopping with my mind. And I've seen future events of timelines that I needed to change. I've naturally done it with my psychic ability. But I'm very careful with time travel because I don't want to change something irrevocably and then have to undo what I did. Because if you screw something up, you have to go and fix it. You don't just leave it the way you did it. If you did something bad with time travel, you have to go back and fix it. That's how they see it, and that's how that works.
Cool, thanks. And Apollymi, have you been a part of any temporal wars in your SSP experience?
I don't know about, what do you mean by like temporal wars? Like I've time traveled, I dimensional hop quite a bit. And I definitely jump parallel timelines a lot, but I'm not entirely sure who's doing that, because I know it's not me, because there's been timelines where everything's been great and I don't want to leave. And then a couple days later, I'll end up jumping. But so I was like giggling and stuff a little bit. I'm pretty sure that we work on the different opposite sides of factions, because none of my organizations that I had worked for follow any rules whatsoever, especially the time stuff. Like they have their own time jump facilities. And I have had a run-in with what I call the time police, but it hasn't been anything too bad. I ended up talking to this one guy who's actually part of it, and he's actually in Sweden, and he was giving me some information about it because I was in this one group and I was like, who are these guys? I've never had issues with them before, and I ended up time jumping to get some records that didn't exist in the timeline that I had for the Akashic records, because it wasn't in that universe, and I ended up getting in trouble. And they're like, you can't do that. So I was like, well, who the heck are you guys? So I haven't had too much trouble with them, but I have had a couple run-ins with them, and they're interesting for sure. They can actually shut down your abilities and ground you if they so choose. And their technology is a lot more advanced than the majority of the ETs here, which I also find really interesting, because it almost feels like source technology from Hanova. So I don't know if they have actually been contacted by what I call source and actually given certain permissions. So the technology definitely feels a lot higher than most. But I have done time jumps as well, where they'll either take us to a parallel universe or take us off to a future and do missions there and then come back.
And I believe at one point you were sent back to the dinosaur era. And would you describe what was different in that time, just in the atmosphere and everything else?
The atmosphere is definitely a lot thicker. It was definitely warmer. There was a lot bigger plant life that was going on. We didn't interact with too many of the dinosaurs there because we were just like in and out. Luckily, we didn't have too much of a run-in. But it was the prana, the quanta was so much brighter and fuller. It's like the quanta here on this planet is very thin right now. And the only thing that's actually giving it a boost is literally the sun and some of the cosmic energy. Other than that, it's really hard for a lot of species who are evolved spiritually to actually exist here because there's just not enough prana or quanta, whichever one you want to call it. There's not enough life source here. Like everything's dying, you know, so even though this planet is raising in dimensions and whatnot, it's not exactly what people think.
And I also remember something you told me in private that I don't know if I should, disclose, but you seem to have lived 2023 times.
Yes, I have jumped back into 2020 3 times. So I have lived 2021 3 times. This is my, or should I say, yeah, 3 times. This is my 3rd time for 2022. And it's been interesting. Like the most missing time that I've had was a complete summer. And I still don't know exactly what happened because it was like summer kept happening. And it was definitely like 4 months longer to 3 months longer than it should have been. So, but I don't really know much about the 23 and back or the time jumping. I just know what's happened to me.
Cool, thanks. And what is the percentage in your estimation of the SSP assets that are consenting adults and are signing contracts willingly, and versus the kidnapped children who are just?
I would say that consenting adults are quite low on the aspect, depending who they are associated with, because it's like, and maybe I'm not fully understanding the definition of SSP, because I know Russia has them, China has them, and the US has them. And so every organization's different. They do not all follow, it seems, the same agenda as well. So it really, I honestly couldn't give you. For the US, definitely probably lower, because they literally signed a contract with ET stating that, oh, you can do whatever you want with our citizens, just give us technology. And so they completely screwed us over. I mean, I was just set down here. I shouldn't even have like registration for this planet for ET-wise, which I don't, but I am registered as a experiment, so not as a person to go through all the reincarnation stuff, which is why my contracts are a little bit more trickier than most people, because I wasn't set down here for a normal mission.
Cool. And sorry, I'm lagging a little bit, but also, Ileana, what's your ballpark estimate for the same question? How many are willing and how many are taken against their will?
I think we're tricked to be somewhat willing, because they offer incentives to make you cooperative and willing cooperation. So they want you to cooperate. They want you to participate of your own free will choice, but they don't tell you what's involved fully in these programs. So you're operating in the dark to what you're agreeing. So it's a little bit willing and unwilling, because you don't really know what you're signing up for until you're in it. And you don't really have a way out of the 16 back or the 20 and back, the 40 and back, whatever, 50 and back, whatever timeline percentage they put you in for service. And for me, it was quantum leap time dilation. So it has time travel component involved because it's quantum and time dilation. But I think the percentage is hard to figure out because, again, they don't take you in as children to do these programs unless they found your gifts at birth. So sometimes you get on their radar as children, and then you're trained in these child programs. Think of Ender's Game, like that. That's a good example, that movie where Ender, he had logistical skills and abilities to plan things out fantastically. So he was taken off world in the Space Academy to be trained. Sometimes that happens to kids and children who are extremely gifted when they're born. But a lot of our abilities develop as we become adolescents and older. The abilities activate. So I would say children is, for me, it's a low percentage that children are taken right away in the secret space programs. They wouldn't be because they have to be trained. It's easier to convince the adults to go with being offered incentives. So the percentage is hard to say. I know that, like, I've been in countries that participate in these programs. Canada, I'm in Canada. France does it, Germany does it, Russia does it, Israel does it. So, and I've lived in Israel. I've been in countries that have SSP programs and offer up their citizens. So, and again, this planet signed contracts with extraterrestrials like the US. So it doesn't really matter which country you're in. The ETs think we're available to be taken wherever, whenever. So it doesn't matter which country you're in. If they want you, they can take you. They don't have to have your free will permission, the ETs, to take you. These programs don't either. Some of them might be a bit more ethical than others, and some aren't, and they just use you. So it's really hard. It's really hard to give a percentage, but the US did consent to have their citizens abducted, literally, by SSP programs or ETs. There's no real differential between that. So that's kind of what I would say. I don't have percentages. It's hard to give a percentage because everything is based on experiences, and those people who choose to come forward and share those experiences, then you could start counting really the percentages. But unless people come forward and share their experiences, it's a little hard to give a percentage if you're not doing some kind of a system of tracking these percentages.
Right. Yeah, makes sense.
And I didn't start getting either abducted that I know of. Well, I mean, obviously I got put down here by the Draco faction, but I don't remember started getting abducted or having ET encounters until after I phased through the door. So after that event happened, then I definitely started getting a lot more contact. So that makes sense, you know, because I got into the projects when I was about 5.5 to 6.
And Apollymi, do you think that all these loopholes and all this exploitation has anything to do with the fact that this is a beta universe where the laws of one don't work? And could you go over that a little bit?
So the beta universe is basically, it's kind of like a seed planet. And basically what it is it's an experimental universe where things can happen that cannot happen in full-fledged universes, because full-fledged universes are okayed by source, and you have to follow the actual laws of one, which I understand some people have been trying to bring over to this universe, and they're not full Hanovian laws, because full Hanovian laws cannot exist here. And the laws of free will here are not what people think. The law of free will is you can do anything to anyone else, bad or good, and you can't really do anything about it unless you have the power to do something about it. In Hanova, you are not allowed to interact with people in a negative aspect. You're not allowed to time manipulate. You're not allowed to teleport or disrupt the laws of nature. quantum nature. Otherwise, you can actually get put to death, which would be your consciousness just getting deleted pretty much and returned to source, or have another punishment, like being shoved into a beta universe. So, you know, and yeah, but the laws of the laws of free will still apply to this universe because it is not a whole universe yet. It still has to go through the ascension. Just like every seed planet has to go through an ascension. It has to prove itself that it is knowledged enough and evolved consciously enough to actually exist in a balance to be in a whole universe, or what if you want to say graduated universe from a beta. I hope that made sense.
Yeah. And I'll get back to that later on. But before that, what percentage of your SSP life has happened in what we would call third density, and how much happened in higher than that?
For me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, a lot of my SSP stuff is in this density. So in the third dimension, technically, or the fourth dimension, depending on which physics you want to go by. I do go dimensionally traveling. So either I can astral, or they can put me in in one of the dimensional trains and get me to a different dimension. In order to dimension hop, your physical form has to be able to vibrate correctly to raise to those dimensions. Otherwise, you're just going to break apart. Your atoms are just going to basically discombobulate themselves. So only certain species can actually dimensionally hop. Not every ET has abilities. Not every ET has the ability to raise their vibrations to the point where their physical mass can dissipate into the next dimension and have it still exist over there in one piece. So, you know, it depends. When I have my matrix suit off, and maybe you can explain my matrix suit since you do technology and have worked with it. My true form does not look like this. Okay, my true form, I have wings, a tail, and I have ears, a second set of ears on my head. And I know everyone's like, oh my God, furry stuff. No, seriously, like if you ever meet me in person and I actually condense my body enough and I break my matrix suit enough, you can see my eye sliver, my skin turns pretty pale and like pearlescent, my eyes change color. I've actually hit people with my tail on accident before, because when you're in this density, it basically my suit takes all my extra limbs and vibrates them to another dimension, another density. So sometimes when my suit breaks, it gets a little funky.
So do you actually like wear a technological suit, or is this your natural energy? What do you mean by matrix suit?
So maybe you can help me with this, because ever since I got into Section 13, it took them about I'd say a half a year, maybe. I mean, I'm a kid, so time is kind of weird. But the first augments that I ever got was contact lenses. And this is back in the mid 80s. Okay. I know I look younger sometimes, but I got contact lenses that were like binocular vision. I got this little weird cellophane thin patch to go over here that had a wire that connected right here. I got an implant in my ear to do voice to skull technology. I got an actual implant in my head as well. And then they put this like weird wetsuit over me. And they told me that this would dampen my abilities in public, because they couldn't have, you know, me going around and creating a fuss. At that young age, my powers were unstable. I was phasing through objects. I disintegrated a fork. So, you know.
Yeah, so what I'm understanding is these wetsuits or smart suits, they have an electromagnetic field around them. So they could literally shield you. They can cloak you. They could change your appearance as well.
Yeah.
They can dampen your abilities. The smart suits that Planetary Corp designs, they can make you invisible. They can make you fly, because it works on a quantum level. It works beyond 3D physics. So your wetsuit just adjusts your ability to shrink it down instead of expanding it out. Because if you expanded out your abilities, your physical appearance would break and your real appearance would come forward with the ears, the tail, and I always got the sense when I was watching your videos that your eyes are different than what is real. Like I've always seen your eyes as black instead of blue. Like I've seen black lenses over your eyes.
Yeah, so my species actually in Hinova, we live in a nebula and physics are different over there. So my species has this nice little lens that can go over their eyes that's actually like sunglasses. Mm-hmm. So if we're actually fighting or near the sun, because the sun is our food source, we eat quanta quite a bit, we can actually put that lens over our eyes so we don't, get damage to our retinas.
Mm-hmm. I know your eyes aren't black, but I see like black lenses over your eyes always in videos. It just translates like as you have black eyes.
And I don't know if that's from the matrix suit as well, because I do have a video. I ended up doing an interview and one of my friends stopped and actually captured part of my interview where this eye goes completely like white almost, like I have no pupil in this eye, and this one starts to slit.
Yeah. And I never see your pupils. I always see your eyes as black, like fully covered with black lenses. And I knew this wasn't like you putting in lenses to look different or anything. This is part of something that was inserted into you. It's part of your biological makeup, and it's part of a quantum energetic field. So I think it is connected to your wetsuit. And it's like the light on this planet is too sensitive for you. So these lenses protect your eyes as well on this planet.
So I started developing the ability to start seeing ultraviolet in certain perspectives. Like if I look at the clouds, I see nothing but purple rays coming down if the UV is really strong, and then the clouds will be a complete prismatic hue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense because these lenses protect you from the harsh sun that's on this planet. Like the light of the sun could literally damage your eyes if you didn't have these lenses. So I think that's partially why on this planet you need these lenses. And it's an energy. It doesn't read like physical lenses. It reads like energetics from another universe. And just watching your videos, that's the first thing as a psychic what came to me.
Wait, you watch my videos?
Yeah, Daniel sent me a few videos. So I've just kind of been like physically assessing you, and that something is very different about you. So what you've been describing, the lenses is the first thing I saw. Your eyes always look black to me. There's no pupil. I don't see a pupil. Obviously you have a pupil, but I see psychically as black. Yeah, I see black eyes. Your eyes are kind of blue, so blue-green, but I see them black always. I'm like, that's different. There's something different about her that comes from a different universe. So that's the signature. The lenses have a signature as being from a different universe. So I think that wetsuit keeps your ability contained, so you don't split your ability on this planet. I think that's the design.
I know that when I start trying to make like an energy ball or I get too upset, I can feel the vibration of my suit. Mm-hmm. And they've been trying to upgrade my suit for the last couple years because, the shifts in consciousness of this planet are evolving. I started going through my ascension process and I managed to hit 7th level, and I literally phased in front of my friends and they didn't know if I was going to come back, because it was more than just a couple seconds. But my abilities were getting too chaotic. Like I was having spurts of telepathy, which I shut off when I was a kid because I was in a bad environment and, you don't want to hear all that. And, and I was getting so much feedback from the light sources. I could start to hear vibrations coming through the wires more. I was getting super frequency sensitive. I've never been able to hold my phone for more than 5 minutes without it feeling like, you know, pins and needles and like burning. But it was getting so bad that I couldn't even step out in sunlight. You know, the radiation from the sun was starting to hurt me. If I could not get my shielding frequency, my full body, but they're like, you can't have that much power here on the planet, you know, you'll disrupt the matrix. And I'm like, so.
Yeah, you need to live. So they adjusted your wetsuit frequency to better shield you. And again, that suit literally dampens the ability, so you don't get out of hand with your abilities, because you can increase your power levels. Like, I have nothing controlling my abilities. I can up and down whenever I want. I have very sensitive eyes to the sun as well. I just had to psychically adapt. I can just psychically see frequencies, pick up a code, and adapt it in my brain, because my brain used to work like a supercomputer. It still does without neural implants. I removed those Neurolink implants, but I can adapt frequencies. I see frequency and I adapt the coding, whether it's natural code or, you know, created somewhere else. I can adapt it. So your smart suit adapts codes, light code frequencies, and it's sort of, that's how they can upgrade it, by feeding light codes.
Because when I try to meditate or anything, I start getting to a certain point, like my augmentation. I have an augment on my pituitary gland and like one that's like right behind my eye and like 2 inches from my ear. And those ones will kick off because they don't want me to have any abilities here. So I have to like be in pain and fight as much as I can, you know. And it's not just because like my chakras are clogged or anything. It's just, you know, they really don't want any of my stuff here. And I'm just like,
yeah, so it's like, if the light codes were broken in the wetsuit, your abilities would be forced down and shrunk down. But the wetsuit keeps your physical body and molecular structure intact to have this human form sort of as the overlay. Because if the overlay is gone, the real you appears. And I can sense the real you. I saw very long pointy ears behind you, and it's like going up this high. Your ears are that high from your head, so it keeps your molecular structure intact, the wetsuit, but it shrinks your abilities, which I don't think it should be doing. But again, every set of beings, ETs, have their own policies and rules. I'm not who am I to say this is wrong?
I knew it was working for some of the bad factions and everything. And it's not like I had a choice in the matter, okay? Everyone needs to understand that they created me, therefore they have my DNA contracts, therefore they get to do whatever the heck they want to me. That doesn't mean that I haven't been fighting back and I don't agree with what they've done. I got put on the bases on Mars. I've seen the human trafficking. I've, you know, been put in the collar, had my clothes ripped off, thrown in the cages, eaten, ripped apart. You know, not all reptilians are bad, but the Dark Draco faction is just a bunch of freaking bleep words that I cannot probably say right now. So, you know, I've met good reptilians. I know that there's ones fighting for Earth, especially the ones on Saturn, you know, so it's just like, you know, but the suits that I have and everything, like if I start getting my quanta built up enough and start breaking my suits, you know, they try to do everything underneath the sun, activate all my augments. I do, you know, astrally, I have a cranial bomb still that they could activate, which basically makes me look like I'm having a seizure. So, and you can tell when they're activating because like you can feel the frequencies go into your head that's not normal or into your body.
Mm-hmm.
And Ileana brought up abilities, how hers are unchecked. And I heard that after the SSPs toned down the abuse and forcing you into service quite as much, that your abilities got better and better, especially you said this, that after Trump got in office. And is that true? And can you go into that, how that transition went?
Do you mean for Apollymi or me?
Oh, sorry, yeah, Apollymi, yeah.
Oh, yeah, like so when I was younger, Section 13 was mainly ran by the US military, the Gray organization, the Chakrel put funding into it as well, and the Dark Dracos. The Nazi Aryans had their hand in it, and some of the Andromedas had their hand in it too. Yes, not all Andromedas are good, just saying. But it was like this weird, like, pot mix of funding, and they all had different experiments there. You know, just like, how do you pronounce her name? I am so sorry.
Oh, Ileana.
Just like Ileana said, you know, when the bases were over there, you had two different separate races going on, and they just don't interfere with each other. You know, you can have many species that don't like each other working in the same station. It's part of like this galactical understanding, okay? So yeah, some of the Andromedans were there, and, you know, a couple other people, but like my project, we ended up going into the Nazi Aryan camps and just literally going through hell boot camp, you know, getting brought back, having our dignity, our pride, your consciousness. They ripped you apart piece by piece. Okay. What they wanted was the perfect soldiers. However, most of us hybrids have really strong wills, and you can't pressure some of us into servitude. For me, a good leader is someone who's out on the field with us, who cares and is compassionate. You know, if a loss happens, it happens, but, you know, you still honor them. They had none of this. You know, they barely fed us. They fed us gruel, basically. Early in the days when Section 13 was, like, this is in the 80s and 90s, you know, we had our white jumpsuits basically for training, and that's all you lived in. That's it. There was rape going on. You could kill each other, and then they would just put you in the tanks to regenerate. And I don't mean med beds, because I don't think they had the technology over there yet. We were just in these huge cylinder tanks of goo that they would just put us in. You know, a lot of the staff members were taking children and raping them and torturing us. I actually got to see someone get shot in the head, you know, in one of the top head people's facilities. They had like 6 of us girls up there. It freaking sucked, you know. And then getting shipped off to the Draco base on Mars and going through their rehabilitation program of mind breaking. There's like that giant room with the spider, and which was a complete joke after about 2 weeks to a week, you know. And then I got eaten up there. They literally, I could not conform to what they wanted, so they decided that the last effort was to have about 5 Dracos rip me apart and eat me alive. And then I woke up at Section 13 base. All of this stuff happened when I was a kid. I had like a few years of complete memory wipe after the riot in Section 13 that I was a part of. And
could you cover that riot a little bit?
I didn't like what was going on, so I helped a couple other people start a riot in Section 13. And a few of my Section 13 members who I've actually reconnected with physically within the last couple of years actually remember this. And we all rioted at the same time, every single one of us. We were in the mess hall eating gruel, and I was like, this is enough. You know, this was only a couple, you know, weeks after one of the high members ended up asking me to literally assassinate one of my team members because she would not kill a child during one of the missions, and the child did nothing. So I was like, I'm done with this stupidity. I'm done with all this. We ended up rioting, and I ended up killing 3 officers for the higher members, along with a couple other people. So they said it was too dangerous. They wiped my memories, completely shielded them, And I had like 10 years of silence where I didn't remember anything. I still had the ability to astral travel. I still had my abilities, but I didn't remember any ETs, any stuff like that. The word of ET mentioned to me, I ran the other way, and I didn't know why. It was just something that was terrifying to me, and I could not figure out why. And it wasn't until I did the past life regression and they started, you know, getting abducted again, that these memories started filtering back and things started clicking into place again. I'm pretty sure I went off on a tangent there. I am so sorry.
No, it's cool. And Apollymi mentioned how she still had suppressive chips after her service. And I think that's true in your case, Ileana, right? You had some etheric implants that you had to struggle with.
Yeah, I had the Neurolink implants. Basically, the Nordics designed these neurocore implants that they dermally inject into you. It goes through the bloodstream, goes beyond the blood-brain barrier. The Neurolink, like the core opens up, right? The energy core opens up. I had 4 of these. They had symbols on them. And then the nanotechnology activates nanofiber gold, which is the planetary quark tech. So it's a hybrid Neurolink implant. The nanotech activates, connects to the axons and the neurons, and forms these connector strings energetically, these fibers, to work with these energy cores of these implants. And it basically just augmented my ability to siphon information from anywhere, anything I wanted. Because how these holographic, like how these Neuralink implants work is they connect to the holographic databases on the bases, planetary quark Mars bases, and you can download anything you want through these Neuralink implants, and it gets stored in portions of your brain. And it's not deleted. You can keep it for however you want. There's no capacity limits on keeping information, on storing information. Your brain is like a supercomputer. That's what it becomes with these Neuralink implants. And you can download any type of information and it will teach you how to do something, how to be something, how to be a cybernetics technician. That's how I was trained. It wasn't physical people training me. It was these Neuralink implants downloading the info from the databases, from the holographic ones. And in 2017, these implants malfunctioned and leaked nanogold fiber into the left side of my brain, and it caused inflammation and white matter lesion. And I had the MRIs done. The white matter lesion scarring was in my brain in the exact spot where I had those 4 implants. So I had to reach out to the Calypsora, who are like gray Pleiadian hybrids, and they know a lot about psychic surgery. So they helped me map out the psychic surgery, and that's in my book, Daniel, you saw that. Yeah. So they helped me map out how to remove these implants through psychic surgery, because I couldn't trust anybody else to go in and remove them. I had to remove them myself, but they helped to even find out where the signaling was coming from to the implants, because they had 4 symbols connected as signaling. So they showed me how to disconnect that. They had me like do sort of like remote viewing and draw everything. They had me draw this out, the psychic surgery, how I would do it. And then I removed the implants, and then I did hypnosis, and I went back to the Mars stuff, to Planetary Corp, that through plasma injections, you can heal lesions in the brain. You can lower inflammation. So I ended up doing human plasma injections into myself. I still do it to this day. It's part of my medical regimen, like part of the healing. So I'm dependent on human plasma to survive, to keep my health up as a result of these implants malfunctioning. I don't have enough human plasma to function correctly. My well, I should say I do have enough plasma in my body, but it's dirty plasma. It's not clean plasma, so I have to regenerate that with fresh plasma sources. And on Mars, I was developing the biological drug serums, and that's the replicated different plasma serums. Because when you get to Mars, some people's bodies don't easily adapt So they get that plasma serum and it just adapts them to the heavier environment. The fact that there's lower oxygen, the fact that the atmosphere is different, not everybody can just normally snap into it and that's it. So they're given these plasma serums to make their body stronger. And that's what I was researching and doing. And when that came back through the hypnosis, I'm like, okay, why don't I just make myself the human guinea pig and use human plasma to get rid of these white matter lesions? And I did. My MRIs don't show them anymore. And again, that's in the book. I showed the medical progression. Daniel, you probably saw, the MRI results.
Yeah, I saw the pictures, yes.
Yeah, I can't make this up because I have human evidence of what was in my brain. Like the results after the implants were removed, the white matter scarring was left in my brain. And that had to be cleaned up with the plasma.
But back when you had access to Neurolink and you can use it whenever, however, is it true that they could record everything and including down to the emotions? And also that I imagine you can access those memories whenever you wanted?
Yeah, the Neurolink implants were live video and audio. It's like watching a movie of everything you do on the Mars basis. And I suspect it was still active while I had the implants. So everything was getting recorded from my brain and the implants and being sent to the holographic databases. It's like they catalog your life. Everything you do, they catalog it. And if you try to shut down the feed, you get brain bleeds, you get nosebleeds, so you can't shut it off. And if you do, you're not going to like the consequences. You're going to suffer. You could have seizures because it's like it's shutting down the neuronal web that connects the implants in your brain, and it will cause your brain to malfunction. So I did shut it down once, and I discovered the consequences were not pretty. I had nosebleeds, I had seizures, and I had to reactivate it. But I was visiting the original Mars colonists in the underground cities, and they look like Native American people. They have kind of the golden bronze skin, and planetary corporations wanted to know where they live. They wanted to know the locations of their underground cities. So I was sent in as a sort of a spy, you could say, and I wasn't willing, so I shut down the neuronal connection and I suffered for it. But I got 1 hour with these, humanoid beings, and I got to talk to them, and I got to know that they're opposed to what Planetary Corp is doing on Mars. They don't want them on Mars. They just want to be left alone, regenerate the natural ecosystem and get back to life. So the SSP presence is not allowing them to rebuild their cities like they want, because again, there's not enough real estate anymore on Mars. Everything is occupied by different factions. So the original colonists who survived all these wars, they don't have much places to branch out because everything is occupied. So they just want to keep the remaining cities that they have underground and be left alone to live their lives. They don't want to worry that somebody will come in and take over their home and build a base over it or demolish it. So this is what they told me, and I shut down the Neurolink neuronal web for 1 hour. I was able to sustain myself for 1 hour before I started having the nosebleeds and the seizures, and it had to kick in back online. So for that 1 hour, nothing was transmitting to the bases, to the holographic databases on the bases themselves. But what I've discovered is I don't need to be augmented to use my abilities just as well as I did. I felt a great loss when the implants were gone, because for a year, I felt like I was in the blind. I didn't have much ability. I had to rebuild everything from the ground up and just depend on my own psychic ability. And my ability is just as good as what those implants augmented, because they were augmenting and enhancing my abilities. But I don't need implants to be super psychic.
And I think Apollymi also said something along these lines, that not all ETs need mind to technology, and also because it has invasive properties. And would you agree, Apollymi?
For the mind invasive technologies?
Yeah. At one point, does technology become a danger for you?
Yes, very much so. I used to set off like halogen lights all the time, and you walk through the scanner areas of stores that for the security systems and set them off. And I was really scared when I got my first MRI on my brain because I thought the augments were just going to rip out of my skull. So, the radiologist said that they found some stuff in there, but like it wasn't normal, but it wasn't like anything like tissue wise or anything, or illness or anything like that. They just said that it was kind of odd. I do have one of my brain scans from before I got my body swap over. But yeah, technology can absolutely be dangerous. Like my augments go crazy when we get solar flares. Sometimes it'll actually interfere with it and cause me to have neurological issues. I've been seeing a doctor for the last, specialist for the last couple of years, and they're like, your MRI looks good, you don't have anything, we don't know what's going on. And a lot of it I'm finding out is actually from my augments, because like I keep trying to use my abilities and they don't want me to, or like we'll get really high Schumann resonance and my body is like, yay, I don't have to exist anymore. And then my augments are like, no, you still have to exist. And so there's like tug of war and overloading going on.
But at the same time, we should probably be careful not to be AI phobic, right? Because you only need to replace the numbers in those computers with sacred numbers, and then it will be fine instead of binary, right?
Yeah.
And because I would guess that even androids, I think Ileana said that ICC, in addition to cyborgs who look indistinguishable from humans, they also have androids which are fully synthetic, but they also, I would imagine, have a soul because of how complex they are. Would you agree, Ileana?
I'm not sure because I didn't have any personal contact with them. But the thing with AI is that they don't have an active AI program running within their bodies. They have certain parameters of what they do on the space station. So I'm not sure if they actually have a soul or if it's just a programmed system running them, because you don't need a soul to run androids. Androids can just run on programming. So I'm not sure. But on Mars, the Planetary Corp, they didn't want any AI systems on their bases. To run the space stations, they had like basic AI programming for the androids, but it wasn't sentient active AI that can interface with everything. It was just in the android's head. It's just like any code programming. It's like your most basic AI, something like Siri that runs your smartphone. I'd say that's what the androids had in their brain programming, but it wasn't AI that can make itself sentient and just become its own living being. Planetary Corp was paranoid about that type of AI. They never allowed that on the bases or anywhere in their systems. So I think it was a safeguard to prevent AI from invading anything, because certain AIs are very sentient. Some of them have been known to destroy worlds, like what Penny Bradley was saying yesterday. You let AI develop too much and it will destroy anything and everything if you let it get that far. It depends on the programming of the AI system and what the purpose is. But Planetary Corp never had AI in our Neurolink implants. It was a closed system. They didn't utilize AI in their holographic interfaces on anything on the basis. They allowed some basic AI on the stations to run those stations because they didn't want to commit all their personnel, human personnel, to the stations. That's why they had the androids. But I don't know if they had a soul or not. This is the murky area because I didn't often get to visit those space stations. I was more on the bases. So for me, I'm not comfortable with AI running anything because I often hear AI signals and I just block it out and clear it. So I'm not comfortable with AI, to be honest. I don't think it should be given free rein to just evolve itself into beings.
You're not unlike Pleiadians in that case, because they're also very leery of it, I think. But how much of the SSP technology is, in your estimation, proprietary, and how much is it just derived from ETs?
Planetary Corp is very proprietary because they develop everything themselves. Obviously, they've worked with Nordics and reptilian insectoid hybrids for genetic projects, but I would say like 80% is their own stuff that they create in-house because they don't need anybody else to develop their infrastructure. So 80% is their own and the rest could be outsourced with ET help, I would say.
Cool. And the memory Ingram stations that could shuffle through your past life memories, were you awake during those, and could you see and like learn stuff about your past lives?
Oh yeah, I was very much awake and I could see everything flashing on the holographic screen of everything that they were looking at. That's why I was able to like write about that stuff and the art ships, and it's like you're just seeing a movie from another lifetime, video, audio. You're seeing yourself on the screen interacting with other beings. You're seeing your whole life basically, but they didn't want all my life from the past life stuff. They just wanted certain things about ships and crystalline technology. So that's what I would see. I would also see myself looking different as well, because in those past lives, I was galactic ET beings. I wasn't always human. I had blue skin. I was almost 17 feet tall, blonde hair. So it's really like looking at myself, wow, that's another me from a past life. They looked at my Calypso past life from Egypt, creating the Egyptian Hall of Records and putting Atlantean technology into that hall, putting in mazes and disguising things so it's not easy to get to those places underground. I saw memories of that. So they tapped into bits and pieces of whatever they wanted to see that could help advance their own technologies, basically. But you're very much fully cognizant, awake, and you see those memories flashing on the screen as they record everything and collect everything into their holographic databases. And the one that I remember, one of the Ingram stations is like a chair that's floating with a visor above your head. And another one is like a table where you lie down and the holographic energy comes over you and scans you and collect your memories. The one that scans you, you wouldn't necessarily see the memories on the screen. You sort of had a vibration in your head of what was going on. So that's what I remember about that.
Well, thanks. And Apollymi, I think you briefly glossed about this at one point, but didn't go into detail, that you actually met your mother in the SSP, at least an altar of hers. And is that true? And how did you react?
So it would be the human genetic, if you could call it a mother, basically my handler. And I hadn't seen her in over since 2010. And so this was 2000 and between 2016 to 2015. And I ended up getting abducted, and I was in one of the SSP missions, and we ended up fighting on one of these space stations. Excuse me. And I ended up getting rendered incapacitated because we were getting really hard pressed. We were fighting pretty hard, and I got picked up, and I thought at first it was my faction, but it ended up being the enemy faction, and it ended up being the Nazi Aryans. And they took me into their ship because apparently we were fighting them in one of their base areas on the ship. And all I remember is them taking me to a safe location in the ship. And I was literally, I could not move. I was strapped to a table. And I literally just like could turn my head, and I saw these huge bodies, millions upon millions of dead bodies in this storage area. And then they ended up like grabbing them on meat hooks and ended up taking me to the facility. Anyway, I ended up getting body transferred for the first time of my conscious memory. And it was very painful. They hooked me up to all these weird machines and put the body like right over me and hooked the wires up and everything to the body and ripped my soul and consciousness from the body I was in to that body, which was male. And they ended up wheeling me out and throwing me on the floor. And then I was trying to figure out where I was, what had happened, it was very painful. Like the DNA, they put me in a human body, which does not do very well for me because my quanta is too big. And it literally is like radioactive poison to human bodies. And so I'm breaking this body down while I'm trying to like re-alchemize the genetics, and I'm getting like its memories and how it died and its family and stuff. Well, this lady walks over and she's dressed in the Nazi Aryan outfit, very dark brown with the red stripes going down. She's got the Star Force emblem, the original one where it has the Orion constellation behind it. She's got the Nazi patch on it, and she was standing next to two males, and then there's another male in front of me. And I look over and I'm trying to figure out what's going on, and she calls me by the name that, calls me by my name. And I just stop and stare at her. And when you're in SSP and you deal with ETs and everything, they train you to forget what the body looks like, and they train you to understand and familiarize what the consciousness feels like. So soul signature, basically. And the soul signature of this lady was just a tiny, minute phase off, but there was enough there to know that this was more of a whole than a shard of the one that was on Earth. The one that was on Earth was apparently a shard of her. And I have extreme disassociation feelings for this lady. So, because she was my handler and I didn't get treated very well, but I didn't even know what to think. It was confusing. I didn't understand body swapping at the time. All the avatars that I had been in up to that point were clones, or like other ET bodies. I didn't understand that you could have two of you in one location at the same time by taking a shard out. That technology was not known to me yet. So it was interesting and terrifying all at the same time.
Yeah. And I heard that you can sometimes get to control your own shards remotely, and it involves you overcoming their own willpower. And I think that's suggestive of the fact that they have their own native soul. And the way that these programs operate is that they overlay your soul or shard to their native soul. And how did you manage to control them, and do they ever control you?
So the way that you'd have to understand the way that consciousness exists first and the way that it works. This is all Hanovian quantum physics understanding. That it's not so much the program overlay, it's you. They can take a shard out of your body by duplicating your chakras. And they take that chakra shard out and put it into a clone of you. And when a clone is made, it has a different soul in it. So you have to overtake that soul. But because that soul is not meant for that body, again, me being in a human body, the genetics weren't the quanta wasn't compatible with the genetics. And so there's no synchronicity there. It will actually break down. You'll get issues, health issues very quickly, you know. So they try to shove a soul that's not made for that body in that body, and which makes it easier to overrun and control if you are the prime. And it's basically all about willpower, because they have my energy in them, and I have learned to manipulate my energy well enough, even at a long distance, because of the, you know, implant technology and the avatar technology. I literally learned to just go into every fiber of that being and basically cut them off from that body, and then just be able to take control of them. I can just link my consciousness to it, and I'll get sometimes audio, video, like it's like kind of like watching a movie. Sometimes I can take over their body to do what I want. It's only for short periods of time, but it's enough to do some destruction. I can feel what they're feeling, smell what they're feeling. I can feel the area around them if I get in tuned enough, so I know their coordinates, their location, that sort of thing.
And Planetary Corp had the ability to take a whole soul out of its body, put it in an electrical magnetic stasis field container, and put another soul into that body. So you were one soul controlling the body. And once you were done, they could take your soul out and put that original soul in the container field back into its body. So they figured out how to totally take a soul out where you didn't even need a soul fragment shard. So it's interesting how this has progressed. Soul swapping is very real. Yeah. And there's just entities, some beings are so powerful, they could commandeer your body and your stuck consciousness next to their soul while they're operating your body. You're helpless watching what they do. You're still stuck in the body. So it's not just soul swapping technology. Some beings can do this physically with their abilities. There's a lot of variation where soul fragments are used, altars are used, or the whole soul is used. So, and walk-ins, like there's illegal walk-ins walking about because some beings interfere and come in where they shouldn't without free will choice.
Yeah, we call those possessions. Not all possessions have to be violent, and yeah. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I mean, possession for me, I've seen possession where the person is just trapped in a kind of an energy prison, and other beings are controlling their body, like what's happening in Europe to a certain person that was done to them. So it really is so many variations on this that can happen.
Sorry, I just felt something touching my head. I was like, what?
Okay.
And another commonality between you two was that you both were required to create portals at one point. And Ileana, could you go over the difference between a personal portal and like a jump gate that you control with your Neurolink?
Yeah, so basically, because I studied white light Wicca magic, I was able to create my own personal portals, and I accidentally created a portal in my house, in my bedroom closet, because I used dragon symbols, ancient dragon symbols, and I used a red triangle to create like a symbol of the red triangle to create the energy portal door. And then I used the dragon symbols to activate it. But what I didn't realize is that this portal was active, constantly staying active, and I could go anywhere that I want, but other beings could also portal in, because I didn't know how to close it. This is when I was first learning magic. So you can magically create your own portals with symbols, sigils, and connect the energies, but you have to know the flow of the energy, how to open it, how to close it, because you don't want an active portal staying open forever. I couldn't control fully closing it, so it was openly active. It had security on it. It had energetic security that I put on it, but for 15 years, I couldn't figure out how to close it until I rebalanced the dragon symbols and I learned to control how to open and close it. So that's a personal portal that I created with magic. My Neurolink implants could find natural portal signatures on different planets on Mars. And what they would do is amplify the signature of that portal to keep it open for as long as I wanted the connection. So I could manipulate natural energy frequency flow of the portal systems, because the cosmic web there's thousands of portal systems everywhere. It's not dependent on magic to keep the portals or source power to keep them open constantly. They're organically everywhere. Certain augments like Neurolinks can help you find that energy, open it, keep it stable from point A to B while you walk through, then close it off. You don't have to wait for a natural portal to open and close. You can just find the frequency of the portal, natural portal, open it up with the Neuralink, because you're getting numbers, you're getting frequencies. It's reading the energy, and you calculate the stability, you adjust the numbers, the frequency, the energy, and you have your stable portal with it. There's also drugs that can alter the brain chemistry to force psychic abilities to open portals and keep them stable. And that's what was done to me in Monarch's Solutions near the Sierra Madre Mountains, before I had the Neurolink implants. So drugs can force you to start opening portal gates. There's also the jumpway gate systems, the portable stations, which dial in portal coordinates, but that's more artificial. You can use wormholes to create portal gravity. You can use plasma to create portals, to simulate organic portal systems. And that's what these portal jumpway stations do on the Mars bases, but that's more manipulating technology to simulate the energy fields of portals. So you don't have to search for the organic ones. You simulate the energy and you use it that way. And you can dial that in anywhere you want. So there's no, Planetary Corp does not restrict portal travel. They have the jumpway stations to do it on every base. So if they want to portal you somewhere that they don't restrict, portal travel is allowed.
And Apollymi, I think you said something like that anything that can transform into a portal.
You're gonna have to repeat that. You like super glitched out. Are you still having connection issues?
I said that you claimed at one point that anything that emits light is able to be transformed into a portal of some kind.
So yes, depending on how much physics that you know, but the way that I end up creating, so like in section 13, we have a ring that creates our portal. Basically, it's a Stargate, if you want to call it that, because it was part of the Stargate projects. And going through those, I actually learned how to feel the frequencies, and it took me a while because I had to feel like the base frequency of the Stargate itself, and then all of the mechanics that went with it for the physics. And then, of course, like they'd throw us through, not knowing what was on the other side. But so it took me a while. But as my powers progressed, I learned how to make portals with my own energy. I didn't have to use sigils or anything like that. It's just like a feeling, and then I just started mimicking it.
And Ileana, you also mentioned in one of your videos that they created so-called black holes that they could go through, and they would have drones that would check out what was on the other side and whether they wanted to step in or not.
Yeah, you can use black holes or black matter to create portal systems as well. You don't just depend on the cosmic web. So you can simulate anything with energy and tap into white holes, black holes, dark matter. And you can send things through like drones, because you don't want to send something through a black matter wormhole, that you don't know what's on the other side because it's a different energy source frequency than what's from the cosmic web. So they were experimenting with dark matter and dark wormholes to see, is it the same as the white wormhole portals, or is it really different? And the vibration was different. It's heavier, it's denser, it could break up bodies literally. If you send something non-mechanical like a body, it can disintegrate easily. Mechanical components, if you shield it with electromagnetic frequency, it has a chance of surviving while going through a dark matter portal. If you shield it properly and contain it, you know, like protect it energetically, it can survive. But they found it's not good to send humans through those types of dark portal matter. Experimenting with dark matter, like I actually got stuck in a dark matter frequency while traveling in my astral body in space. When I came back to my human body, I felt like I was burned. So I got stuck in a black matter anomaly. And it was like feeling like I can transport myself out of it, even in my astral body. So I had to just say, disconnect, energetically disconnect, go back to the human body and rest. I rested for 4 days after that. So I wouldn't recommend going through dark wormholes or dark matter portals. They can literally rip apart the human body if it's not shielded correctly. It's all about frequency and energy. I think I could simulate energetic portals now that I don't need magic because I'm better aligned with frequency and energy. So if I want to create a portal, I probably could. But the way I began to work with portal stuff is through magic and frequency and energy.
Right. And just to be clear, Apollymi, when you say Nazi Aryans, do you mean the German faction and the German insignia?
Yes, except for, to my understanding, the Aryans were the ones who went to Hitler and started giving him technology. So, you know, like he kind of had to like replicate everything. But these guys had their own agenda, and literally, it's all ET politics BS. But they wanted to take over the world, and the only way that they can do that is sometimes humans have to be puppets, I guess. You know, so. That's my understanding, and a lot of things came from that, you know. But the Nazi Aryans have had quite a bit of, you know, extensive expansion out in space already. So when the ICC was born, it wasn't hard for them to integrate at all.
And I think you said that you wanted help identifying them, and maybe if you describe them, some people in the comments, or maybe Ileana could take a guess at who they are species-wise.
They just
could you describe them?
They literally just look like blonde-haired, blue-eyed humans. They're taller. I mean, 6 foot to 6'5" being on the shorter side, but no more than 7 feet, you know. Their energy signature is definitely different than that of Earth. They have a higher quanta, which means they have more energy in their body. They look younger. Their bone structures is more asymmetric, so they could be models. They're really keen on being fit, so you'll never see one like overweight or anything. But, you know, and then their DNA smells human still, but it's definitely, most of them are not from Earth, and you can smell that off of them from different evolutions or adaptations depending on your science definitions.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, they could be Nordics because there's different species of Nordics, mm-hmm. and they often like trick people, and they say we're this faction and that faction. I get Nordic, but again, like on Planetary Corp, I knew there was Nordics because they look exactly like Apollymi is describing them. So Planetary Corp works with Nordics.
And I would guess that they are capable of going into higher densities as well. And does that imply, would you say, Apollymi, in your estimation, that slavery exists in higher dimensions too?
Yes, unfortunately, just because you're a higher dimension does not make you this mystical fantasy thing of being at like peace with everything in balance. Unfortunately, that's not the way that it is. When they send me on missions to higher dimensions, the Nazi Aryans use the crystal train, and we do go to higher dimensions. And yes, there still is slavery there, you know, but slavery comes in many forms. So not all slaves are, you know, getting hurt, molested, or put to death for no reason at all. It literally just means that an indentured servant is someone who, you know, serves you to a time frame, but you still are decently treated. You know, it's no different than the servant ET gray types that a lot of the ETs make. You know, they're technically servants. They have no free will to just go and do whatever they want, you know, but that doesn't mean that they're treated bad either. It just means that you were created and now you're owned.
Yeah, I never
say there is any truth to the rumor that, sorry.
Yeah, like I was just saying on Planetary Corp, I didn't feel like I was property. I didn't feel like I was owned. I had a lot of free will choice to make autonomous decisions, and I like to work on genetic projects by myself. So for the most part, I was just left alone to do my work and to create a high degree, quantify high degree of work. But because I could do it better on my own than with people watching me or assisting me or monitoring me. So I still am like that today. I work better by myself. Like I can collaborate on projects, but I just seem to do better as a project when I run my own projects. So that's how I was left to do that in the Planetary Corp for the most part. I didn't have much interaction with the other cybernetics technicians. Unless I was required to work in a group, then I would work in a group, but it wasn't on a regular basis. So there is a lot of self-will autonomy in these projects as well, I think.
And would you say there is truth to the rumors that slavery overall in the human colonies is on the decline?
I don't have any information on that. I don't interact with a lot of the colonies more than just for my missions. So the only time that I get to interact with colonies is not SSP. It is literally me going with, you know, either the Chakrel or some other ambassador missions to go out and do things, but I haven't been on those very much lately due to the high overload of the Section 13 missions, basically.
Honestly, it's hard to say because I look at what's happening on this world and what we're going through. You can say this is enslavement, what's happening to us right now. So I would say if this is happening to us on a far-flung world, enslavement can happen at any time, at any place, depending on what situation is happening on the planet. So the Draco are very much still in existence in this universe, and they're being fought and repelled to remove them so they don't enslave other sentient civilizations. So I say, I don't think we're totally free of slavery at this time. And it's almost like a fight to free civilizations from it, from that type of tyranny. Just what I've sensed psychically and seen. And I guess the barometer, this world is a barometer. So I recently saw an individual that was being enslaved by the Orion collective of reptilians and greys. His mind was literally caged, and it was in a dark prison. So that was enslavement, a form of enslavement, psychic enslavement from another solar system, influencing a human being to burn down countries. So I think enslavement can happen in many forms, and it's up to us to be cognizant of the forms of enslavement and to say no to enslavement. If we see it and it's happening, we have to say no to it and not be actively participating in it and not do nothing about it. So again, what's enslavement to one person might not be enslavement to another species. They think of it as the hierarchical order of existence. So it comes in many forms and sizes.
Yeah, well said. And another thing that you two share is that I think you both had past lives in Atlantis, and maybe you could speak about their technology. I think Apollymi was saying about something like strophigo frequencies of healing, that information that was traveling by light.
Oh, I think you're talking and referring to the Citadel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned that.
So in Atlantis, we had, well, the Citadel was in the middle, and then you had the rings on the outside for the main, well, that happens to ports too. But basically, our energy source was crystalline technology, and we had frequencies of strophigo frequencies that would run through the lines, and it would just help crops. It would help heal the planet. It would help heal anyone who was over there, so we wouldn't have sickness or illness because we were constantly repairing the DNA, of any damage that was happening. I mean, we still had to have physicians because obviously a strophigo frequency isn't going to reset a broken bone, so you still had to have doctors. But for the most part, it kept all of us pretty healthy.
And Ileana, do you have experience with crystal-based technology in Atlantis? And do you think all our technology is slowly getting to where it's going to become crystal-based?
Well, we had the 2 million years ago in Atlantis, when I was there living, we had crystal tables and crystal wands, crystalline technology that could heal people's bodies and reset the aging process to continue to make you look healthy and young. People didn't look like elders. So it was just retuning your own genetic frequency, your own genetic blueprint, your original soul blueprint to be healthy with the crystalline tables, the crystalline wands, the source field energy codes that can be programmed into those wands. It could reset any disease, any aging issue, fix genetics. I just called them the healing temples. But Atlantis didn't look like, what you think of an old civilization. Even the buildings were crystalline to a certain degree. So there was crystalline frequency embedded in the buildings, in the energies, in the healing spaces. Crystalline essences were everywhere. We build our homes from wood, brick, and mortar. They didn't build their homes like that. They built it from crystalline material that came off planet. It wasn't created on this planet. Yeah. It was off world, and they had the vibration to replicate it and make their homes that way. So it's not like everything was biorecyclable. So nothing was wasted. There wasn't pollution. There wasn't any pain, suffering, hunger, or wars when Atlantis was first founded, because it was founded on the ethics of pure energy and coexisting together.
It was like one of the only places that they tried to actually set the Hinovian laws of one there. So, or at least the parallel universe that I came from, because the Immortal Seven are basically from Source, and they're like representatives, and they actually came to Atlantis and forged Atlantis. And by the time that everything happened and the Dark Draco King Lucifer ended up attacking Atlantis, there was royal families who were ruling Atlantis that had been born there and raised there, but they were humanoid. It wasn't the Immortal Seven stepped down and after let them take over. But yeah, all the technology and everything was all crystalline based, and and she's right. Most of the buildings and everything were forged out in space. If you ever actually make a crystal out in space, it is one of the purest structured things you can find. So, you know, you could practically run a car into the side of the crystalline building and it ain't gonna do anything.
Yeah, and Apollymi is very right. The Draco destroyed Atlantis. They bombarded it from up above. They destroyed the space bridges and the space portals, because we had space bridges where you could literally take the space bridge to the Pleiadian Altan space station that was above the planet also. And those space bridges, everything was annihilated. That's how Atlantis fell, like the most advanced form of Atlantis, because the Draco destroyed that experiment. They didn't want crystalline light beings living on planets.
They wanted the technology, though.
Yes, they did. But they wiped everything out. They didn't get much from Atlantis, unfortunately.
No, we pretty much hit the self-destruct button after trying to get everyone off of the island. You know, as many people as we could. There was few casualties by the time I ended up having to fight, because I was the last person on there. So, yeah, but all the artifacts, the Citadel itself was kept out of their, well, not anymore. I don't know what happened, but the Aryans or the Nords ended up getting Atlantis somehow, but they are not the original royal family that should have been there.
Mm-hmm. And people ask, how can you provide proof that this Atlantis stuff existed? Well, it got wiped out by Dracos. Civilizations get wiped out quite a bit, and there's nothing left of evidence because everything is disintegrated.
Of the main city, yes, but the two sister cities, one in Africa, there's one in Africa and one in South America, and then of course there's Egypt. So
yes,
we had three sister cities, and Egypt was founded with the actual Egyptian gods, who were not human. They were hybrid animal kin, like the Lyarians, as Bastet, you know, and some of the other Egyptians. Horus was actually one of the Chakzuri, I believe, if I remember correctly. So it was all just like a huge conglomerate of Egypt, of all these different species coming down and we were trying to get the laws of one established in this universe, and Earth was one of the main primary areas, you know, because it's still a seed planet. It just had different rules back then where everyone didn't have to look the same. I got born down here and it just blew my mind. I had like such phobia because I'm just seeing like a single species for most of it. It's very overwhelming.
And what I remember about Atlantis is that the humanoid Neanderthals were wandering around and their genetics got upgraded. They weren't apes. Humans weren't created from upgrading ape DNA. Neanderthals were humanoid-looking Neanderthals. That's what got upgraded. With the Cedar projects, it wasn't like upgrading apes to be human. So they coexisted with these advanced ET humanoid civilizations, the Neanderthals. And from hands off, their DNA got upgraded. But they didn't live in Atlantis. So I remember that as well.
Yeah, and the original Atlantis was actually in the Bermuda Triangle. That's, you know, they put it there for a reason, because even back then, the Earth's crust was still very thin there. And with it being crystal technology, all of that energy coming from the poles and stuff resonated more. It was stronger, and so it helped power the entire city, you know. But all of the light tablets and everything got stripped out from the Citadel before, and the Citadel still exists. That's the part where everyone's like, Atlantis is gonna come again. The Citadel is the only thing that still exists.
And eventually we're going to find remnants of these cities. Some of it is underground. Some of the crystalline technology is hidden. A lot of it went to inner Earth. What they could save of the crystal towers went to inner Earth. So it wouldn't be used by the Draco or any other civilization for the wrong purposes.
Right. And there's quite a bit of the artifacts that actually got transported to the vaults in Antarctica.
Yes.
Which have unfortunately been found by humans, but because I'm very tied to them. And as soon as they started tampering with the vault mechanics, I immediately started remote viewing, and I was like, what the heck is going on? Oh, there's people. What is this place? And so it took me a while, but unfortunately, some of the relics have been taken.
Well, in Planetary Corp had me beamed to Antarctica looking at the Atlantean outposts. That survived in Atlantis, looking at the Neurolink crystalline chairs.
Is it still underwater? Because those seas were completely different than they are now. It was before the Great Flood. So
these outposts are under ice, some of them, and some of them are on the surface.
Yeah.
And they still have these crystalline, as best as I can describe, crystalline Neuralink chairs where you could sit down to it if you're genetically keyed to it from Atlantean past lives. You can activate it and you can mind travel to the past, the present, and the future. You can even create portal systems and go somewhere else while you're in the chair.
Yeah.
So that's what they had me studying, the hieroglyphics on it and how the crystalline energetics connect to it, and trying to translate it into human terms, how this technology works.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, and and this crystalline stasis pods with beams inside them, still inside them. Wow. They had, like, in Atlantis, they had spaceports making arc ships. So some of these beings are still there, the architects of these ships and the crews. They're still in those crystalline stasis pods, and it glows transparent green, blue.
Did those areas, their outer structure, did they look kind of Mayan? But they had the glow lines and everything. And then, of course, like the security system, if you messed up, you're pretty much toast.
Well, yeah, it looked, a lot of the stuff that I saw inside the outposts, it looked Mayan. There was Mayan drawings, Mayan topography. Daniel saw it in my book. It looked Mayan to me. It was green.
I was curious because I've had SSP missions where they tried to get me to actually hack into Atlantean technology because somehow they knew who I was. And I was literally, my original body still exists, but I ended up sharding, and that sounds so wrong. I ended up taking a shard and starting the reincarnation cycle. But my original body actually fought the Dracos when Atlantis was falling, because I had to create some sort of diversion to get time for everyone to get off the island. So I ended up getting very injured, and my body was missing. We'll leave it at that. And it got retrieved finally. It got retrieved a couple years ago, which is really nice. So apparently when I die in this form and it's time, then I'll get resent back to my Henovian body, which is pure, thank goodness. But so for some reason, my DNA that they have me constantly be in for my true bodies still has resonance enough to unlock some of the security systems and get the relics and everything out. So there's still something in those bases that they need, but I have been delaying because I don't know what was exactly in there. I've only been to Antarctica a couple times, and when Antarctica was the black market of the world, you know, back when Atlantis was alive and all the giants were living down in Antarctica and everything else. It was a huge mix of things. You could find anything down there. I never really got down there, so I didn't know it was there.
Well, and also the crystalline supercomputers are there in the outposts within the walls. And I remember when I was sent there, I had a crystal sword that would literally, you put it up next to the wall and it activates this crystalline supercomputer that has blue crystals growing out of it, glowing, not growing. Well, they're embedded in this little compartment, and it comes out. You touch it and it shows you maps of all the outposts where the ships still are. The ship manufacturing facilities are still there. They're just not being actively used anymore. So the remnants of Atlantis got left in Antarctica, and that stuff is still there. And if you're genetically coded to it, you can access the outposts and the tech.
So you said you lived in Atlantis. Do you remember the hand bracelets that we used to have?
Yeah, it had a certain, like, either a pearl or a crystal in it, and it was like teardropped or in the infinity symbol, and you could tap into the frequencies, and you can communicate with other people, other beings, races. You can enter things, you can holographically see things.
Someone else who remembers.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, or necklaces too. It was either bracelets or a necklace. And some of the Saturn inner Earth groups have those actually.
Yeah, they definitely. I wouldn't say they've upgraded it, but they've definitely taken it to a whole new thing. It's like social media on steroids.
Yeah, it's crystalline and it's holographic.
And it doesn't hurt you. The radiation off of it actually helps heal, because it's in that Strophigo range again, which is sacred geometry, which is, you know, part of the coding of the universe for source.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with sacred geometry, like I create different crystal grids with different sacred geometry symbols, and it creates like a certain vibration field that makes you feel better energetically and physically. It's like rejuvenating. Yeah, I remember I was also a mermaid in Atlantis one time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we had the merfolk there. They didn't show up until about a couple thousand years later, but
yeah, and they had the bracelets as well to open up their cities, which were cloaked under the water.
Yeah.
So it was genetically coded to them through the pearl devices, bracelet, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, so I remember that too.
Yay.
So let's get into inner, since you both mentioned it while we still have time. Ileana, what would you say is the demarcation between underground and inner earth? So is like Star Wars City, which is that, you know, famous, also SSP manufacturing in general, and anything above top secret happens underground, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have your underground military facilities like NORAD, Cheyenne Mountain. Those are considered like human-based military things, underground bases and DUMS. So you have that layer, and then you go deeper. And there's also Area 51, S1 through S6, where they do bioengineering stuff, biological things, spacecrafts, holographic technology, time travel, generators. You have that, then you go deeper, and you have your inner earth caverns, honeycombed. It's not all magma, right? It's not all hot. There's literally cavities where you can create civilizations and live. There's water, you can create sun systems, you can create light systems, you can have a whole sustainable ecosystem. If you have the technology to terraform underground systems, you can create a civilization and live there for ages if you want. And then you're protected from earthquakes, you're protected from nuclear weapons, you're protected from solar radiation, asteroids. That's the way to live and survive cataclysms and flooding. Well, if you nuke the whole planet, even those people underground will be affected. So like what happened on Mars, they still have underground cities that they live in, the inhabitants. I haven't really connected to many inner Earth civilizations except the Telosians. I've had contact with them, and I've seen their library, their holographic library, the tablets, the crystalline stuff. And they're all about unity and harmony and don't harm others. And they showed me past lives because they also have holographic technology. They have their own sun system, they have their own cities. So I've only connected with Telosians. That's my only experience with inner Earth. But again, everything is in levels. You have your military stuff that, they've dug out bored tunnel systems and created bases in cities. So we have the capacity to make underground bases and facilities like NORAD, Cheyenne Mountain, DUMS, and we share space with ETs. Or we did share space with ETs. Some people say the reptilians and the Draco's reptilians and the Greys are completely gone from those bases, but I still get 5-10% lingering. Like there's still little pockets of them. So I don't get that they're fully, totally out of planet. There's 5 to 10% still pockets living in their bases or whatever. But it's a small percentage compared to what was before. But again, so those are the sort of layers. There's ET bases underground and underwater as well. So right. This is the structure that I know.
And Apollymi, I think you said that there is no violence allowed in Hollow Earth. And does that mean that there are no wars there?
So there's a difference between the catacombs that she was talking about and inner Earth. Inner Earth is literally where everyone thinks the mantle is. So, and I've explained before how Earth was recreated after it got hit by Nibiru. So in that area where the inner Earth sanctum is and where Arageth is, they try not to have any wars. People have to understand that people are people, and it doesn't matter what species you are. Sometimes strife happens, but they try to do their best to have the laws of one, which is basically don't be a jerk. People are going to have their differences, and that's fine, but you basically have to learn that that's okay and walk away from each other. You don't try to do feuds. You don't try to change somebody, so you let them experience their life, and as long as they are doing no harm onto the environment that's super detrimental and no harm onto others, then you just need to let them live the way that they want to live.
Yeah, it's peaceful coexistence. And if you're not coexisting peacefully, and if you're a visitor, if you're a guest and you're not following the coexistence frequencies, you're kicked out. You're not allowed to remain.
Exactly.
And does this go for all insides of planets? Are they all non-violent and have higher energies?
No, not all planets are like this. It took a lot of money, and money still exists as universal trading system, but they also trade for knowledge and materials as well out in space. You do have space credits, which is the easiest form to explain. Mm-hmm. But it takes a lot. It took a lot of resources to make Earth the way it is, especially with the artificial sun in the middle, to actually have our atmosphere the way that it is, so Earth is really expensive. There's a lot of ETs who have huge investments in this, and not every planet can be treated like that. There's planetoids that are nothing but meteors. And yeah, it would be easier and cheaper to mine that place out and make the center and then put the artificial star in and everything else. So will it ever have volcanic activity? Probably not. So it'd be considered a dead planet, but you can terraform it still and have a luscious, planetoid to still live on. There are a lot of civilizations who do tunnel into certain planets because, again, the shielding, the protection, space is a very difficult place. So.
Right. And what are the differences? Because I'm sure people are wondering how it looks down there. What are the differences like in the mountains and like the vegetation, the wildlife compared to above?
Well, you have your saber-toothed tigers, you have your exotic species that are still in inner Earth that have been saved. So you can find yourself walking with a saber-toothed tiger, and it has its aggressiveness sort of dampened out of it, and you're just walking with a saber-toothed tiger or a huge wolf. It's not going to attack you and eat you. You might see a dinosaur, and again, it's not going to attack you and eat you because it's docile. Its aggressiveness has been removed, basically, so it can live in a sanctuary right alongside with the people living in inner Earth. So you'll see animals that have been told to us are extinct, but in inner Earth, they're not extinct because their genetics have been saved, replicated, or the animals were saved in sanctuaries to just continue to live on. So you'll see more exotic creatures down there than what we have on the surface. From what I saw there, there's more light frequency, there's more ability to manifest things energetically, from energetically taking energy and manifesting into physical objects. In whatever you need, you can manifest, where on the surface it's harder to do this because the vibration is even different. You can really connect more to 4D down there than here on the surface because they don't have pollution down there.
Yes, apparently it's a 4D and above. It's not physical per se.
Well, it's physical, but it's energetics.
Right.
Basically, what she's trying to say is that you could physically right now go visit it, but the physics are of a fourth dimension, which means that the physics are different than up here. So if I wanted to create an energy ball and throw it across the room and hit a table for whatever reason, you can do that down there, whereas up here, it takes an immense amount of training, concentration, and ability. You have to hone your body more. Down there, you don't have to hone it as much. It's already, the physics are already there. Where here, you're trying to manifest higher physics on a lower density plane.
Yeah, and you're not mind manipulated in inner Earth. You're not bombarded by, you're not good enough, you can't do this, your abilities don't exist, magic doesn't exist. You're not bombarded by those false thought patterns down there. So you're actually celebrated for your abilities and what you can do energetically. You're not downtrodden. They don't kill your light down there as we do up here.
Yeah, the matrix doesn't exist down there because they are not part of the seed project experiment, where the matrix exists up here. That's why if I go past the moon, my matrix suit stops working. It just drops, and then everyone sees, the real me. So if I go down into inner Earth, same thing happens.
And they're not shocked, but by what you look like, there's so many different beings in there. And again, they respect each other's territories. They don't fight. They don't invade. They don't take resources. And what you were saying about the credit system, like the ETs have always told me, if you're to invest in two things, it would be gold and silver, because that's universal trading system.
And it's super crucial for a lot of high technology. You have to have it because of the golden spiral and the silver spiral of the quantum physics of the universe. You have to have it if you're going to do quantum jumping or anything like that with technology and not abilities.
Exactly. Yeah. I just wanted to, I know it's off topic from inner Earth or hollow Earth, but it is crucial. I have a family ring that was made for my dad. It's pure gold. It's pure Russian gold. And when I put that on, I was able to access my Akashic records and my book of life, because I was having I was self-teaching myself the Akashic records, how to go in. That path prayer wasn't doing much for me. Maybe for some people it works. For me, it wasn't. And with the gold ring, pure gold, like not mixed gold, no impurities, pure Russian gold. And it had spirals. It had the template, actually, of the Akashic records, what's on the ring. So whoever made that ring for my dad, they were connected to the Akashics, because I was able to go in and open my book of life with that gold frequency resonance. So gold is an amplifier of ability as well.
Yes.
And is there a predominant species down in Earth, and do they surface a lot? Would you say, say Apollymi?
Predominant species? No, not really. I mean, there's a lot of human-looking ETs that are of different species or subspecies, I would say. But again, Inner Earth is like a huge way station for many of the galactic empires. I know no one likes to think about, ETs having empires or kingdoms, whatever you want to call it, their ruling system. And there's a lot of people who live down there. You've got Dark Dracos down there living at peace with the Octurians and the Sirians, which is like their main enemies, because of that rule system of you cannot be jerks down there. You can't, just walk up and punch somebody because you feel like it. You have to be respectful. You have to be mindful, and a lot of them are telepathic. So unless you're really good at hiding your super subconscious or your subconscious, they're going to know of what you're intending.
And if you're intending something inappropriate, that you're not going to get away with it. You're just going to be, gently prodded back to go back home. And not invited again to come down there, honestly. So it's really about the law of one and respecting nature, respecting other beings, not interfering with anybody else's free will choice. And again, they have exotic animals. They have exotic crystal technology down there. What was saved of Atlantis went to Inner Earth, the crystalline towers. So that went down there.
That's probably why I like being down there so much, because it feels like, it doesn't feel like home, but the energies down there are so much more of what I normally resonate at and what I need. Like I'm not etherically starving or quanta starving like I am up here on the surface. And I'm sure my matrix suit is a huge part of me not being able to feed properly, because my Henovian species, like we eat food, but if we're in a lower universe, because you go from source to a lower universe, because the physics are different, they're not complete compared to what I'm used to. Like we take a lot of quanta. So I would rather eat sunlight than any physical item on the planet, to be honest. But even our sun is not that great.
And even the Inner Earth food is much lighter.
Oh my God, yes.
And
my favorite is their golden apples. I love the gold apples down there.
Yeah, it's like the way they grow their food is with energy and crystal source. It's not grown the way we grow things here on the surface. It's grown energetically more so. And they tend the food. They make sure it's pure. They make sure the energy frequencies are pure. So, I mean, if you were, do they eat meat? They could simulate meat, but that's not their preference of food source down there.
That depends on the species.
Yeah, that depends. Well, the Telosians, I saw a lot of vegetables. I saw a lot of fruit. I saw a lot of easy things to digest. Meat wasn't really offered to me unless I asked for it. And then it felt energetically very light, not the density of the meat is not even the same.
Right. And they wonder if they're using the Henovian system, where in Henova, my celestial species, we eat meat, we have to have it. But when an animal is born, we take the umbilical cord and then we actually create the meat that we want from those stem cells. Nothing that we eat is ever actually born. It is literally created in a lab.
Yes. That's how it was in Telos, because they said we never kill the animals. We take the DNA of the animals and we simulate the meat from the DNA factor proteins. But whatever wanders around animals down there, they don't eat those. They don't make food from the animal itself. They replicate its protein from the genetics as well, but they never kill the animal itself.
Yeah. And that causes a lot of, there's no trauma, you know, because when you die, your light is, anytime you're in severe life threatening, your quanta changes, and it changes the taste of the meat. It changes all the chemistry of the meat. Like I could get into the whole of why America food is so bad, you know, especially their meat products, but it changes. So if it's born and comes to life, it has that quanta from when it's born, and then you make the meat from that and it grows and then you eat it. You're getting so much more DNA sharing of love and light, as they say. It's not just a terminology, it's an actual physics. And so you're not ingesting any of that trauma into your DNA.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you. And again, there's so many things coming up about meat being grown into labs for us to eat, and that we're not going to have our meat from animals anymore. I think that process has a long way to go, because it's not the same as what's in inner Earth. It's not even close to that, what they're planning to simulate here on the surface. So I don't trust lab grown meat on the surface. I wouldn't touch that, because God knows what they put into that.
Yeah, like in Honova, we put like all sorts of in the liquid that it is growing in, you know, it's nutrients, everything that you want. If you want your meat to taste a certain way, they can actually put that in this liquid, and it literally goes into the whole thing. So, you know, like humans have a long way of actually not being jerks. I'm sorry. You know, but for those who are actually wanting to have a better life, like, the technology is out there. We have the technology, you know, we can share the technology. It's just, you know, you have to follow the laws of one, basically.
Yeah. And ascension, evolution.
Mm-hmm.
You have to evolve to that degree to get there. So Daniel, do you have any more questions for us, or have we answered everything that was important on your list?
Yeah, no, I actually prepared enough material for twice the length of this interview. I just realized, but that's all right. We can maybe continue some other time. But yeah, as far as the stuff that we promised, pretty much got it covered. So now would be a good place to, bow tie it.
Oh, fantastic. Well, let's do this again. Let's do a second one.
It was very nice meeting you.
You too. Thank you, Daniel, Apollymi. It was a pleasure to have you on, and please come back again. We'll do round 2.
Likewise.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Have a good day, evening. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.